I'm 82 now. I fell when I was 78, and everything I thought was still mine quietly slipped out of reach after that. It wasn't a dramatic fall. No storm, no broken staircase, no story worth telling. Just the kitchen floor, a little water I didn't notice. My foot went, and I followed. That's all it took. I remember the sound more than the pain, a dull, flat sound, like something being set down too hard. I stayed there longer than I expected, not because I couldn't get up right away, but because something in me didn't rush anymore. I lay on the tiles, looking at the bottom of the cabinet, thinking, this is new. Up until then, I still thought of myself as careful. Slower, yes, but still capable, still in control of small things. After that day, people began to look at me differently. My daughter came more often. At first, I was grateful. Then I noticed the way she watched me stand, the way she hovered when I walked to the sink. She started finishing my sentences, not out of disrespect, out of fear. I didn't like being watched like that. A week later, she moved a chair into the kitchen so I wouldn't have to stand too long. Then came the rubber mats, then the conversations about just in case. I nodded through most of it. I didn't feel broken, but something had shifted, quietly, permanently. I used to think life changed in big moments. It doesn't. It leans, slowly, until one day you notice you're no longer upright. When I was younger, I ignored small things, not out of carelessness, just I thought they didn't matter yet. In my 40s, I had a steady routine. I woke up early, made tea, stood by the window while the house was still quiet. My husband would still be asleep. The children were already grown by then, coming and going with their own lives. I worked part-time at a small office. Nothing important. Papers, calls, small conversations that repeated themselves. I walked everywhere, to the market, to the post office. I liked the feeling of moving without needing anyone. Sometimes I would notice a slight dizziness when I stood up too quickly. Just for a second, the room would tilt, then settle. I remember it clearly because I would pause, place my hand on something nearby, and wait. It always passed. So I didn't think much of it. That was the first sign, I think, though I didn't call it that. Later, in my 50s, I began to feel a kind of tiredness that sleep didn't fix. Not exhaustion, just a heaviness in my legs, especially in the evenings. I would sit down more often while cooking, leave things half done and come back to them. I told myself it was normal. Everyone gets tired. My husband would ask if I was all right. I'd say yes, and I meant it. I wasn't lying. I just wasn't paying attention. There were other small things. I started holding on to railings when I went downstairs, not because I needed to, just to be safe, or that's what I told myself. But I never used to do that before. I stopped walking as far as I used to. I told people the streets had gotten busier, which was true, but that wasn't the whole truth. The truth was, I didn't trust my balance the same way. Not fully. Still, I never said it out loud. You don't notice when your confidence leaves. It doesn't announce itself. It just becomes something you no longer assume. In my 60s, after my husband passed, the house grew quieter than I was prepared for. I thought I would use the time well, read more, keep things in order, stay active. I had plans, small ones, but I also had habits, and habits are quieter than plans. I began sitting more, not out of sadness exactly, just there was less reason to get up, no one to cook for, no one to wait for. I would sit in the afternoon and tell myself I'd stand in a minute. Sometimes that minute stretched. I don't know when sitting became easier than moving. It just did. That was another sign. My legs grew weaker, but it didn't happen in a way that felt urgent. It felt gradual, acceptable. I still managed everything. I still lived alone. I still told people I was fine, and I believed it. In my early 70s, I began to shuffle a little when I walked. Not always, just on certain days, especially when I was tired. I noticed it most when I walked across the kitchen. My steps were shorter. I laughed about it once, alone, said to myself, "You're getting old." Then I carried on. I never asked a doctor about it. It didn't feel like something worth mentioning. That's how it goes, I think. The things that change you rarely feel important at the time. They feel like small adjustments. I also stopped checking certain things. My eyesight wasn't as sharp, but I didn't update my glasses regularly. I made do. If the floor was a little wet, I assumed I'd see it. If something was out of place, I believed I'd step around it. I trusted the version of myself that had always managed. That trust stayed long after it should have been questioned. And then, at 78, I fell. It wasn't just the fall itself, it was what followed. The hospital room, the quiet conversations between my daughter and the nurse, the way decisions began to happen around me instead of with me. I went home eventually, but not to the same life. There were conditions now, a walking aid, regular check-ins, fewer moments alone. I lost something I can't quite describe. Not independence exactly, something deeper, the feeling that I could move through my own space without being measured. After the fall, every step felt observed, even when I was alone. I became aware of my body in a way I hadn't been before. Every movement was careful, deliberate, and tiring. I stopped going out as much, then almost entirely. The world didn't shrink all at once. It narrowed, room by room, chair by chair. There were days I didn't speak to anyone, not because no one cared, but because I no longer had the energy to pretend I was the same. My daughter suggested I move in with her. I said no at first. Then, after another small stumble that didn't turn into a fall, but could have, I said yes. Her house is kind, warm, full of noise in a way mine no longer was, but it isn't mine. There are things you lose that no one can return to you. The way you used to reach for a glass without thinking, the way you stood up without planning it, the way silence felt like yours, not something you were placed inside. I don't blame anyone. Not my daughter, not the doctors. If I'm honest, I don't even blame the fall. The fall was only the moment everything became visible. What destroyed my life wasn't that single day. It was the years before it, the small signs I dismissed, the quiet changes I accepted without question. If I try to name them now, I can. The brief dizziness I ignored, the growing weakness I explained away, the balance I stopped trusting but never spoke about, the movement I slowly gave up, the way I stopped checking what I could no longer see clearly. 5 things, none of them loud, none of them urgent, until they were. I think about time differently now, not in years, in moments, in chances to notice something and not turn away. I had those chances, many of them. I just believed there would always be more. That's the part I can't change. Not the fall, not the move, not the life I have now. It's the time before, the time when something could have been done, or at least understood. Sometimes I sit in my daughter's living room in the afternoon. The light comes in through the window, just like it used to in my house. I watch it move across the floor, I don't walk across it anymore without thinking. I measure the distance. I plan the steps. Even then, I'm not always sure. That uncertainty, it stays with you. It doesn't leave. If you're listening to me, I won't tell you what to do. I wouldn't have listened either, not really. But I will tell you what I wish I had done. I wish I had paused the first time the room tilted and asked why. I wish I had taken my own tiredness seriously. I wish I had said out loud, "Something is changing," instead of waiting for proof. I wish I had trusted the small discomforts more than my need to feel capable. It's a strange thing, realizing that strength can become a kind of blindness. You hold on to it so tightly, you stop noticing when it's slipping. Now, I have less time than I used to. I feel that in quiet ways, not fear, just awareness. There are fewer afternoons ahead of me than behind. Fewer chances to sit like this and remember clearly. I don't expect things to improve. This is where the road has led. I wake up. I move carefully. I sit. I wait. Some days are lighter than others. Most are the same. I'm not telling you this to make it sound worse than it is. It isn't unbearable. It's just smaller. And I remember when it wasn't. That's what stays with me. Not the fall itself, but everything that came before it, and how easily I let it pass. If you notice something, anything, quietly changing, don't rush past it the way I did. That's all I can say. I don't have much else left to offer. Just this, and the time it took me to understand it.